Hey everyone, thank you for joining our sentiment analysis webinar. Happy to be joined by Justin and Alberto from the team, and we have Marcy here as well running the show from behind the scenes. But we're just going to give everybody here about 30 seconds to get joined. See, we're about a half capacity right now, and we'll go ahead and get rocking and rolling. All right, let's go ahead and kick on off. I see people are still joining, but this webinar will be recorded. We'll be sending out the replay after, and obviously if you have this link, you'll be able to watch it right through here. So please let us know if you have any questions. Down at the bottom, there is a questions button. And if you do have any questions, make sure to put them in there. There's actually two. There's a chat and then there's questions. Chat's great if you guys want to communicate and just like say, have various feedback in there. But if you actually have questions for the team, make sure you put them in the questions tab. It makes it easier for us at the end. We could live answer questions with them on the screen and all that good stuff. So hope you guys have some great feedback for us there. Again, this will be recorded and sent out after. And we also do have a few polls throughout the webinar. So if you are here live with us, you'll be able to vote on those polls as we get to those different topics. So without further ado, we'll go ahead and kick on off here. Again, thank you everybody for joining us. For our agenda today, we'll be running through sentiment analysis, obviously, is the headline topic. Really excited to get this feature out. We've been working on this for quite some time. So today we're going to go through with Justin and Alberto. We'll show you how it works, how you set it up. There are some still, that's why it's still in beta. There are some known issues and limitations. So we'll go over what those known issues and limitations are and how to deploy it. We'll go through, Justin will give you a live demo and actually analyzing the sentiment data and how that all breaks out in the call history there. And then we'll talk about the beta launch pricing, which we were able to negotiate discounted pricing due to the known issues and limitations. So we'll go over all of that. And then we're going to go over some other hot topics. Alberto and team on the PE team have been doing a lot there since he's gotten here over the past 6 months, really growing that organization and maturing that team and coming up with new and better process. One of those is communications during service impairments and a lot of, again, new stuff that we're doing there, updates and just more attention, I would say, to that tool. So we'll go over that. We'll go over something that's relatively new. We launched last quarter. Now we're making it more public. We have a direct tier 2 access. So we'll talk about that a little bit. We'll talk about our feature request tool. We'll talk about call cabinet, which is also ready. And then our Viirtue support GPT agent. So again, thank you guys for tuning in. We'll try and run through these topics, in a good manner. So first, just wanted to shameless plug here for Viirtue Connect. Today is the last day for early bird tickets. So if you want that discount, I believe, Marcy, correct me if I'm wrong, there's a $100 discount per ticket that's active through the end of the day today. So make sure you go ahead and purchase that ticket. This is going to be our third Viirtue Connect event. So I'm personally always super excited for this. It gives us a great chance to get together and network and learn new things, figure out what's important to our partners. It really is a great event. Just for the organization and for the ecosystem. So please join us. It's going to be a great time with a great keynote speaker, a lot of marketing and sales training, which has been a key point for a lot of our partners. They want to know how to drive more business, but we also are adding a bunch of technical courses too. So if you have your more technical team members you want to send, there'll be classes and courses for them too. So again, if you are planning on attending, I would definitely take advantage of the early bird discount that ends today and go ahead and secure your ticket. All right. So now I will pass it on over to you, Justin. Take us through sentiment analysis. Oh, you're muted. Of course. Would it be a video call?
Justin, you're muted, buddy.
Sorry, it was the graphic death by demo. Okay. Can you guys hear me loud and clear now? All right, perfect. All right, sentiment analysis. This is going to be the NetSapiens version. Obviously, we're going to talk about the call cabinet version, which will also piggyback on the call recording from the NetSapiens side. But either way, we'll keep that towards the end. The sentiment analysis that we'll talk about today is again going to be built into NetSapiens. Is going to be available directly within the PBX portal. And let's just kind of get into what's under the hood, what it looks like. Let's go on to that next slide. and kind of talk about the key functionality here. So we've broken it down into kind of three major points here. So, I mean, at a high level, we're basically capturing call recordings directly from the PBX and running them through DeepGram's transcription engine and AI, and then essentially embedding it again directly within to the call history within the PBX domain, or even at the global level for call recording as well. So that's all built in there. You don't have to pivot to any other, logins, any other portals, or deal with, clunky exports. So that's a nice deal. We're also using DeepGram for both the transcription side of things as well as for the AI processing. So it means that you're essentially getting highly accurate transcripts and efficient analysis with very minimal latency. So it will compile after the call. So it's not going to be live and ready for you waiting in the call history as the conversation is going on. So there will be some compile time. Could it be anywhere between seconds to minutes, depending on the length of the conversation? But either way, it's going to be available for you there again within the call history as well as the post-call analysis. All right, so this is kind of the bread and butter, what we'll actually take a peek at here in a second. But essentially, it's just a concise AI-generated summary of the conversation. And that summary is essentially just a nice way to be able to quickly identify what was actually going on during that conversation, obviously. It will be a full speaker kind of separated transcription for the call as well, to where you can break it down and see both sides or one individual side of the conversation, and from there also be able to see the ratings again, which we'll get a visual on here in a moment. And then finally, sentiment scoring. Again, probably another key point to this, to where you can kind of quickly flag if a call was positive, neutral, negative. It'll actually give you a percentage score, and again, an overall rating or score for the conversation itself. So that, again, you can quickly get eyes on if it was a low score, a negative score. Essentially, you can easily identify that, jump into the analytics and maybe summary and key topics for it. And from there, start to kind of break down chunks of those conversations and be able to determine, what exactly was going on there. And to me, this really gives you visibility into not just what was said, but how it's said. And it lets you start identifying patterns at scale, essentially. Now, moving on to the next slide here, we can talk about the known issues and limitations. All right, so like any powerful tool, there are definitely some edge cases that we or NetSapiens are still working through. The two most common ones are, of course, going to be call flows with multiple legs. So essentially, the more legs that there are in a call flow, the potential is going to be higher for the sentiment analysis as well as transcription to not maybe function properly or completely. But either way, you might get legs of the conversation here and there, and they're working to fix that. As well as the next one is probably going to be calls that were queued or had long transfer trees. If you're transferring attended transfer, blind transfer, etc. But either way, as you're kind of transferring folks along, again, those legs in the conversation, it does essentially potentially cause limitations for what is actually being picked up during the actual call recording and, of course, the transcription of that call recording. So we've done a lot to handle common variations, but for full transparency, I do want to hand it over to Alberto. Perhaps he can walk us through, what's currently known, what we're actively working on, and essentially, where we see this feature set improving over time. So with that said, Alberto, could you weigh in on this?
Absolutely, thank you, Justin. So the biggest limitations that we have today, and we're working with NetSapiens on correcting, are calls where the RTP is transitioned from somewhere to another place. So an example of that will be a call that gets parked, and then you resume it, or gets put on hold, or has a two-step transfer. Those in those cases, we do see sentiment analysis not working. But for simple call flows that are just caller and an agent or caller and extension, sentiment analysis works great. And again, we're working with NetSapiens on ensuring that this gets corrected. But the product is so fantastic that we wanted to move forward with exposing it to you guys so that we could start seeing the benefits of it.
Awesome. And one other one to bring up too, one other case that I think Sean internally had referenced is hold music too, right, Alberto? Sometimes it'll pick up the hold music if the call is placed on hold and think that's part of the call since it's part of the RTP, and that will make the analyzation a little confusing.
Yep. Absolutely. That is, one of the cases where sentiment analysis may think that the on hold music as part of the conversation and analyze the sentiment of the actual on-hold music. So absolutely.
Perfect. Okay, so since we kind of got that big ticket issue out of the way, let's talk about how exactly easy it is to configure this. So we've got 1, 2, 3 steps here. I'm actually going to share my screen as long as I can understand how to do so. There we go. And okay, sorry, this might take a second. Thank you, Apple. There we go. Again, death by demo, forgive me here.
Oop, did we lose Justin? Sure, I'll be right back.
Dan, while Justin gets adjusted, why don't we continue with the rest? Oh, there he is.
I can jump back in. Sorry about that, guys. I had to let permissions. Google let them see my screen here. So with that said, maybe we could share this time. Works for me. Okay. So with that done, let's dive into the portal. So we're at the global level here for the manager portal. Obviously, any of our partners wouldn't see the resellers portion, but everything else is going to be the same. Now, in order to activate this, there might be some work from support initially to get kind of the first things growing here. But essentially, once you're in to the portal, you can go to platform settings. Now, UI configurations, another note here, we give you guys the complete and total library access to this. So again, nothing paywalled here, so you can absolutely get in here and start to initiate or activate this yourself. So there are 3 UI configurations, user interface configurations that you can enable or need to enable for at least the basis part for sentiment analysis and transcription. So I'm just going to go ahead and copy these down: portal, voice, speech to transcription. Good enough. Let's search. As you can see, there's a couple here, but we just want the baseline one. So with UI configurations, for the most part, think about these as basically just an on-off switch. Is this feature activated or is it not? And then from there, you can choose a scope. And I can give you kind of a preview of what that looks like here with the first one. So adding a configuration for the transcription portion is simply going to require that you turn the scope to the domain. So whichever domain that you wish to activate this feature set and functionality for, there's no need to choose any further scope or user because that's basically handled within the PBX side in the domain. And I'll show you that here in a second. But essentially, you're just turning on the feature set, at least in this part for the transcription. Now, as I mentioned, there's 3 basic ones here. So we have portal, voice, speech to transcription. Next, we're going to have portal, voice, transcription, sentiment. And again, there's a couple other ones, so you just got to be careful. Be sure to choose just kind of a basic one. Here is going to be the 3rd one below it that we'll also have to activate. But in the same sense, it's going to be the same thing, just basically initiating this feature set for the domain that you've chosen, and of course, just enabling it to go on. And then of course, we can go back here and try again for that last one is going to be portal, voice, speech to transcription vendor, typo. And then the vendor itself. Now the vendor for now is going to again be DeepGram. So essentially this will be the one different type of configuration to where you're choosing the value for the vendor. Still same scope for the domain, choose the vendor, in this case for DeepGram, and then from there go ahead and add it to the configuration. And then at that point in time, once you're live and ready with at least those 3 basic UI configurations, now you can go into the domain level. So we'll just go ahead and take a peek at one of my test domains here. And then from there, all right, so 2 different levels essentially where you can activate the transcription as well as sentiment analysis, also with call recording, just in terms of basic functionality. But essentially, you can edit the domain and choose to configure per user, or again, for every user within the domain, you can choose to have transcription with sentiment analysis, or just again, just choose to have call recording. Now, if you didn't want to do it domain wide, because there could potentially be some caveats there in terms of who it's going to apply to. But either way, you can also do it at an individual level. And again, rather than have to create separate configurations for each individual user, essentially just go into the user. And once you're in there, you'll still have that call recording option again, as long as it hasn't been activated at the domain level. and you'll have those same options there. So you can start to activate this for specific users if you wish to do so at a domain-wide level, etc. Okay. So with that said, once it is activated, and I'm going to go to another domain here, let's move on to that next slide and talk about how to exactly use it for analyzation. So in this case, let's go to, we'll take a peek at some of our active transcriptions, as well as sentiment analysis. And of course, again, those topics that it will point out. So we've got here, at least in the most previous portion of our call history, we've got quite a few different scores going on. Okay, so sentiment analysis is going to consist of 3 separate columns here. It's going to be the actual sentiment scoring, the closing sentiment for the overall conversation, and of course its score based on positive, neutral, and negative. And then of course your topics. Now in the future, you should be able to choose topics or maybe keywords that are selected here, but otherwise, this is just going to be an AI generated list of the topmost topics for the conversation itself. And you'll get capped at 3. Okay, I'm not sure if there's going to be a workaround for that or if we'll get more in the future, but either way, 3 is a pretty good number to work off of here. But essentially in how it works. Okay, now in terms of accessing the dashboard for the complete and total sentiment summary, etc., you simply either need to choose a score here or just choose the closing sentiment. So in this case, maybe we can take a peek at this call. It's going to open up a sub window. Now, the beautiful thing about the call transcription and sentiment analysis is that you can see the overall conversation. You can have the recording for the entire conversation here. And again, bookmarked by the colors based on the sentiment analysis that occurred there in the scoring. You'll also get a basic summary of the call. So again, just a condensed version of what exactly went on during that conversation. You'll get, again, your topics that we saw there in the columns in the background for the call history. But either way, the topmost items spoke about during this conversation. And then you'll get your filters and your searching capability. So you can search the entire conversation for keywords or parts of the conversation, etc., if you wish, and they will show here. You can also pick and choose or deselect which side of the conversation you want to see, which is a pretty cool feature, I think. Where you can say, hey, where was most of the negative, positive, or neutral sentiment going on, and which side of the house was bringing that to the table, right? Was it the client, or was it maybe one of your reps, etc.? So from there, again, you can filter it out based on speaker. You can filter it out also based on the sentiment. Maybe I only want to see my neutrals. Maybe I only want to see my negatives. In this case, there are none, so maybe just the positives. And it's going to break it down for you to where you get, again, just those chunks of the conversation, okay, to where you can play that part of the conversation. You, of course, get a transcription of it. You can copy it, or otherwise you can download the entire transcript of the entire conversation that was picked up. And then from there, analyze it if you had another third party or so forth, or if you just wanted to store it off of the platform someplace, you could do so. Now, in terms of what you would use this for, kind of best practices, it could be just about anything. It could just be for understanding what maybe your support reps or maybe your sales reps, etc., any team is talking about, maybe the keywords that other sides of the conversation, the partners or end users, etc., who are calling in, what they're speaking about. And then from there, you can run your own type of analytic based on, you know, my topics, based on my summaries, based on my sentiment analysis. Was it positive? Was it negative? Was it neutral? From there, you can break it down and say, hey, what were all of my negative conversations about? And from there, also, you could use it for training purposes as well, maybe just to ensure that maybe, again, your support, sales reps, and so forth are all following the same script. Maybe make sure that they're all talking about the same things. Maybe if you have a sales team, maybe you make sure that they're all speaking about maybe Viirtue Connect, right? That's coming up. We want to make sure that everybody's talking about it. We want to make sure that it's gaining popularity. We want to make sure that everybody's hearing about it that we speak with. So a lot of different ways that you can use call transcription as well as the recording and scoring. I'll leave that up to you guys otherwise. And then from there, we can kind of further along here to the next slide and keep on keeping on. Let's say any questions regarding that particular part of the show.
Thank you so much, Justin. That was a great rundown. Really appreciate it, man. And let's keep on going. So, and I did see this actually came through. So this is officially our beta launch. So this would be, if you wanted to do it, completely up to you guys. But this will be part of, again, what we'll set as the beta with a discounted price. So what you might remember from our last webinar, we talked about the $8 general release pricing. So again, until V45, when NetSapiens is comfortable that they've removed those complexities and what we had went over, like the known issues, we're going to launch it at this discounted pricing that'll be available to you. So our thoughts are, we want to give you guys the product in the best form we can deliver it. And again, you guys as the service providers will have the ability to make that decision if you want to launch it to your customers in beta, just use it internally until it's GA, or if you just want to wait. And with that said, I believe, yes, we have a poll, Marcy, if you could throw up about if you plan on waiting for the beta or not, or if you plan on waiting for the general release. So everybody wants to give that a second to answer, and we'll keep on keeping on. And Viirtue team, by the way, you guys can just hit skip on these polls instead of voting NA. So you just always hit skip. Cool. All right. So moving along, we're going to talk about just some, also, again, just improvements. This whole year, we've just really been focusing internally and how can we get better at our processes. Alberto, I'm sure you guys have, if any of you joined a webinar this year, you've heard from Alberto. It was a very talented get for us that comes from this industry with a ton of experience. And he's been just really behind the scenes working, putting in unbelievable hours, trying to get everything to where it has to be, refine our processes, all that good stuff, and working with the rest of our talented PE team. So I'll hand it on over to you, Alberto. I know this has been a talking point for us internally about just updating our communications and stuff like that. So I'll pass the ball on over to you, good sir.
Absolutely. So yes, from the PE front, we have been trying to improve a lot of processes. One of them is uh, our incident management process, where we are trying to improve the way we communicate and provide updates to you guys as far as when an incident is happening, and having a very strong and structured root cause analysis after those incidents happen. Um, we have also instituted a structured change control process to safeguard human error from our platform. And we have seen, the rewards of having that in place. So we continue to make improvements. There's always room for improvement, but we continue to make improvements in the area of communication, and the structure on how we manage and handle both our changes and our incidents.
Dan, you muted.
I was going to say, I noticed some folks are putting questions in the chat. If you could just make sure you put questions in the questions tab. What that does is at the end, we can live answer and I'll show them on the screen so everybody can see the answer, because a lot of these questions are, and I see Marcy's doing that for you guys. So awesome. Thank you, Marcy. Just again, a lot of these questions, I'm sure everybody in this meeting will have, will want to know the answers. So thank you for, it looks like we have a lot of good questions coming in, and we will definitely answer them there at the end. But thank you, Alberto, for that summary. Appreciate it. This has been a big talking point, something that we've soft launched here. I think we actually launched, I don't remember if it was end of Q1 or beginning of Q2, but we have launched our direct T2 access available for a 5K and up MMC. So if you're a part of that, if you are at that commitment level, you actually, and you probably have already heard from your channel or your client success manager about it. But if you are at that tier and you haven't, just reach out to your client success manager. They'll give you all the details about how you can get direct T2 access. And we've even had some partners, if you are interested, that are just below that tier. If you do find value in having direct access, again, just reach out to us if you're at that tier. That's part of the incentive to be there. So you still get access to tier 1, of course. We've actually found that most of the partners that are doing this still do use tier 1 a lot, especially for the easier stuff. But if you have a ticket that you feel like you've already done the tier 1 troubleshooting, or want to get right to direct tier 2, we've listened to that feedback, and we do now have that as an option for anybody at that tier. All right. Feature requests too. This has been another hot topic, especially from the survey that we sent out about 2 weeks ago. So we know that that feature request portal has gotten pretty out of control, if you will, and maybe that gives everybody in here like a good idea and understanding of all the different requests that we get. And with a limited team, we can only obviously accomplish so much, but it is definitely a good look to understand kind of just what everybody's looking for, where the consensus is on what most people agree, and what are just more like edge case things that might only work for a partner or two, but not the greater Viirtue ecosystem. So we do review these, we analyze them, and we do try and prioritize our roadmap. But obviously over time, the list grows and grows, and we're only able, we're not able to achieve, of course, everything on there. And then 4 or 5 years later, you get to the point where we are today, where we have 250 plus feature requests in there. And it's really hard to keep track of. And I think it's especially tough for new feature requests that don't get as much visibility because they kind of just get lost in the pile. So Marcy's going to throw up a poll here, and we want your feedback. We basically have the idea to do one of two different things. We want to either blow away the feature request portal, just keep the top 20 or 25 in there, and we'll get a lot of other stuff logged in our backlog in Jira, or just kind of keep it as is and keep combing through. So Marcy, if you could throw that poll up and just let us know what you prefer as a partner to just kind of keep it as is. Again, just with the thought of, it is a little much noisier, so it might be tougher to have visibility to new feature requests, or should we blow away everything, just leave the top 20 and start from scratch? And, obviously, even if we do that, I just want to note our team will run through, and anything we see that we go, oh, even if it doesn't have a lot of votes, like this might be a great feature, we'll still add it to Jira so we can evaluate it in the future. So if everybody could go ahead and vote on that, again, we would love your feedback. And again, Viirtue team, you can just hit skip. You don't have to vote any. All right. Cool. All right. And then with Call Cabinet, and before we get into it, because I did see a question, we'll answer it again. Call Cabinet and NetSapiens sentiment analysis are two completely separate things. But I'll let Alberto kind of get into there and why we partnered with Call Cabinet, as well as launching the NetSapiens sentiment analysis, what problems it solves, and when we expect it to be ready.
So yes, Call Cabinet is a more involved transcription and reporting ecosystem than sentiment analysis from NetSapiens, which is just analyzing the sentiment. And also Call Cabinet is a PCI compliant and HIPAA compliant platform that can be used for companies that are in the healthcare industry or require those compliances in their call recording. So it's two different products. Call Cabinet is obviously a lot more involved as far as the output that you get from the call recordings, full transcription, sentiment analysis, and other contact center features that it has.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Alberto. So again, yeah, Call Cabinet, it's I would say a more premium feature. Anybody who's been in the space knows Call Cabinet is the leader. Also, if you've had issues with NetSapiens call recording, there are sometimes files that get corrupted and you can't get found. That's kind of, we've optimized that and it's been much better. That's still been, NetSapiens I would look at as a very eco-friendly, if you will, call recording solution. Call Cabinet is rock solid. They record the calls using a SIP-REC protocol right from the platform. So it's using its own technology, which really will help fix those. Again, if you have a customer that lives and dies by Call Cabinet. So we do have, I'll let Marcy throw up there. We do have a form. If you do want to get registered for, we technically already set up with Call Cabinet for early access. Just put in, I believe, right, that was the form, right, Marcy, or was it something for something else? I think it was, it was for auth.net, not Call Cabinet. I apologize for any confusion there. We'll have info coming out about Call Cabinet. The form that we're going to have here in a second is for a different feature. But again, two different features, Call Cabinet and then NetSapiens sentiment analysis. All right. Another plug, we do have our Viirtue GPT support agent. We've been training this now for 6 months and it's been getting much better. It does still hallucinate from time to time, but it's definitely been a great tool. I've been using it a ton. It's trained on our full knowledge base. It can assist you with deep troubleshooting. It can review SIP flows and packet captures and all that kind of good stuff, and kind of give you some troubleshooting tips. It even helps do with sales coaching. I found is really great. You can upload a quote from a competitor. It'll tell you about maybe their hidden fees and just ways to beat them in a sale. So really a nice tool. It's completely free. Again, it's alpha. Just make sure you're fact checking. There's the link from Marcy. Make sure you're just obviously double checking that because it is new. That's why we have it tagged alpha. But so far, so good. Like I said, I've had really good feedback about it from just about everybody I've spoken to. All right, and then some other announcements before we get into the Q&A. VoIP updates, just so you know, our VoIP team is working on a lot of great updates. You might have already seen some stuff in the background. The biggest headliner update that we've gotten a ton of requests for is auth.net integration. They're building that all out right now, and we're going to be ready pretty soon for anybody that wants to be a part of the pilot of auth.net. So if you do, just scan that QR code or go to that link, just put in your name and your email, and it'll get you on that list. Thank you, Marcy, for the link. And it'll get you on that list there to be part of the early adopters for the auth.net integration. For any folks, the reason we believe we got asked for this, Stripe is the industry standard really when it comes to credit card payments, and that's why we have that as our first payment merchant vendor with Vibe. But a lot of our partners already use auth.net with other solutions, and also auth.net is about 1% less of a credit card processing fee, I believe. I think Stripe is like 3.9, auth I think is 2.9, I want to say. So a little bit less expensive for you there. So we did get a lot of requests for auth.net, and our team is making that become a reality. So again, if you do want to use it, go ahead and pop up to sign up for it there. You'll also notice we have more tax exemption management. I do think that might actually already be pushed to your guys' production levels. If it's not, it will be soon. That will give you the ability to manage tax exemptions at a global level on top of just at the individual account level like you've seen. We also have added bounced payment fees that's automated in there, you'll see, and then a failed payment report too, which was a big request. So lots of other updates coming, but that's what kind of that team has been working on in the background. And then I'll kick on over to Justin. Another hot topic has been refreshing our knowledge base. So Justin, I'll let you kind of give those updates.
All right, the good stuff here. Let's talk about it. So improving the knowledge base, this has been, I will say, probably a lot of people's baby, but since I started here at Viirtue, it's definitely been something that's drawn my attention. I will anecdotally say I do believe that a knowledge base is certainly the window into a business. And the more improvements that we can make, the more easy we can make things or processes for our partners, I think the better for everyone involved. So this has just recently kicked off. It's going to be an ongoing initiative to essentially enhance and clean up our partner-facing knowledge base. There will be some side quests there involving our own Confluence as well to improve our support mechanisms and how they handle tickets as well. So there's improvement across the board again, just so that everybody's concise, consistent, and is getting the same answer across the board, even if in the knowledge base it's an answer that you as a partner would want to search for. So number one, we're going to take some steps to one, identify and of course start to get rid of confusing or update confusing or outdated articles. Find gaps where key content is essentially missing and start to fill those gaps as well now that we have the attention of the full team for this project. Building a targeted list of revisions and new content. So again, we can more concisely release this for our partners to be able to review. And then of course, also, and one of my favorite things about it is, we'll always have knowledge base articles to where it's going to be a page wall, it's going to be a text wall. And I know what you're thinking. But we would like and are starting to move forward with also adding short videos, streamlined videos to kind of reinforce key topics that are going on in that article. I don't know about you guys, the audience here, but I can hardly even watch a video longer than 2 to 3 minutes. So that's kind of the focus here, as well as, again, reading those text walls can sometimes make you go cross-eyed. So we're just looking, again, to make things concise, easier to consume, and overall, kind of empower our partners with self-service if they wish to do so. You'll always have our support team, but essentially the easier that we can make kind of the easier processes or things that can initially be handled by our partners themselves is going to open up a lot of opportunity for our support and engineering teams to more or less focus on the more complex issues and of course ensure that we're running at 100% 24/7, 365. And again, I think that this is really going to help out with that.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Justin, for the update. Appreciate it and looking forward to the final product there. I know our partners have really asked for this for a while. All right, so awesome. So we'll run through, I know we have a lot of questions here. First, just as far as like timing wise, I know Alberto just said call cabinet and then sentiment analysis, Alberto. I don't know if you want to give an update on when that is live and when our partners can actually start using it. Hope you're muted, good sir. You were muted there, Alberto. I'm not sure. There you go.
Sorry, was it I was clicking on the unmute button and it wasn't allowing me to unmute. I apologize for that. So call cabinet is ready to be used. And the sentiment analysis, right now we had a couple of customers that are using it. It was our soft launch. And we will have it as a product in the month of July. So towards the end of the month of July, sentiment analysis should be generally available for everyone, of course, with the limitations that we outlined earlier.
Awesome. Thank you, Alberto. And we'll go ahead and Justin, I see you're responding to that first one. Let's go start at the beginning. So go ahead and live answer some of these questions. This was a good one. How does it handle the following different languages and heavy accents? I do actually think, Alberto, you and I talked about this, if you want to answer this question.
Yep. So sentiment analysis understands different languages, but we are not set up for it right now. English is the main language. Now, as far as different accents, sentiment analysis is able to detect the accents and the mannerisms. Like if you have somebody like me that is a Spanish speaker and has a heavy accent, it does understand that. If somebody is from a southern state and has a very heavy southern accent, it understands and analyzes the sentiment of those accents as well, but all in English at this point. Later on, we'll have multilingual version that will come when Sapiens releases it.
Perfect. Awesome. Thank you, Alberto. All right. And John had made a wonderful comment about our beards and the depth and glory to our beards. So thank you, John. That is a prerequisite for us hosting a webinar. You have to have a beautiful beard. Bill McLean had asked if there's a fee to this. Yes, if you guys saw it again, $5 for the beta. That'll move to $8 once it's GA and those known issues are resolved. And then there was another question, can I beta test this? So yes, this is the beta. So if you want to test it internally and before rolling it out to your customers, like that is completely up to you. Our goal was, again, to hand it to you in the best form possible and give you all the nuances to it. And again, you guys as a service provider can make that decision to how you want to roll it out. This actually is a great question. Well, and I was looking it up during the call. Will the final transcript sentiment be available via API? So my guess is almost undoubtedly yes, but I was looking through the API docs from NetSapiens, and my guess is they just don't have it in there yet. Alberto, do you know if there's an API endpoint to call to for this?
There's not an API in the current version. I did have a conversation with the NetSapiens engineers about that. And I believe in a future release, it will be there. Currently, there's no API, but in the future, there will be. There's a feature that they are in development at this point.
Perfect. Perfect. And that makes sense. So hopefully that answers that question there. Not for the beta, it sounds like. My guess, just knowing NetSapiens, maybe that'll be something they stick in V45. All right.
Yeah, it's earmarked to be in V45, but it's not officially there yet. So that's why I didn't say it will be in V45.
Oh, my bad. It'll be in a future release, I'll say, maybe. Yeah. And then is this pricing on top of the call recording price? The answer is yes. So obviously call recording is a prerequisite, as Justin had alluded to in the process of this. It takes the call recording from NetSapiens, puts it through the AI engine, and then spits it back out to us with all the data. So obviously you'll need the call recording in order to get there. So you definitely need call recording too. What we're showing today is just around the sentiment analysis of the call recording. All right. Is there a usage fee? If so, what is it? So no, it's an unlimited fee. What we did was we did a webinar about 4 or 5 months ago, you might recall, where we actually had asked that question. Would you prefer a flat rate for sentiment analysis, or would you prefer to be billed metered basically by the second, I think it was, of how it does the transcriptions. And then through the AI engine, the voting by our community was overwhelming that they just wanted a flat rate. So that's what we did. And then again, what we tried to do for the discounted pricing for the sentiment analysis launch was we added a discount on there. Plus we try to take into account the percentage of less calls that it analyzes, because it doesn't, some of those call legs, and again, the use cases we brought up at the beginning, you will not have sentiment analysis. So that should just be all baked into the flat rate we give and should make it easier for you guys to sell. All right. And then another question about when can we start using the beta internally? So again, hopefully Alberto's answered that. Just let us know if that wasn't clear. And yes, so once the service is no longer beta, the price across the board will go up to the general pricing. And again, that's just taking into account how long the calls are. We've done a lot of research on this internally, the average amount of minutes to be transcribed per user, and we have it down to a pretty good science. All right. I see Justin's answered some questions. Okay, here we go. So, Alberto, I'll let you jump in here, but applying call recording to queues. So this is, again, just one of the, when you do apply to queues, it's each user will get billed for call recording. But again, for the beta, this is where we're seeing the known issues. So I don't know if call queues are really a good use case for the beta, but go ahead,
Yeah.
Alberto.
No, call queues is definitely going to be a challenge in this initial release. So if you have a customer that is explicitly looking for sentiment analysis in a call queue, um, right now might not be the best option for them to use it.
And that might be a good one for Call Cabinet. So just remember,
Yeah.
Call Cabinet uses it's completely different technology, different product, and sentiment analysis is like a small component of that. Does a lot more. So think of Call Cabinet as like this on steroids. But yeah, if you have like a call center customer or something along those lines, I
Call
would look.
center, call center definitely call cabinet is better because you can do training and QA with that product. You can even have a little bit more involved contact center solution there versus just understanding sentiment.
Yeah. Thank you for that, Alberto. All right. Next question. Does Viirtue support on-demand recording, whereas a user can toggle on or off? So yes, this is something maybe Alberto or Justin could give better perspective. I know you have to have it on at the domain level, like you have to enable the call recording settings. But yeah, maybe if one of you guys want to jump in here.
For Alberta for confirmation, but I do believe that the standard start panes that start and stop recording, as well as the button that lives within our soft phones, should be able to start and stop the call recording. Now, how that will play with the sentiment analysis, I can't quite say. If maybe Alberto, if you have any further information, or otherwise, we can look that up and confirm.
Yeah, we'll have to get back to you on call recordings that pause and continue. My guess, because of the issues that we've seen when you have multiple RTP stream and a call recording is essentially an RTP stream, is that this is going to fall into that category of complex call flows. Um, but this is not a specific call flow that we tested, so I'm hesitant to say yes or no. But again, based on the technology, I will venture to say that it's going to fall under that category of complex call flows.
Thank you, guys. All right. So we got another question about V45. I can just kind of answer that. So yeah, I think it's probably too early to tell when V45 will be launched. They haven't even released like the alpha code for us to load on our sandbox. So it's kind of like a loaded question before we actually get our hands on it. Just speaking from experience, we've been here since V36 was the first time they used this naming convention. Before that, it was like 1222, 1223, one. So we've been NetSapiens partners basically since the beginning, going over 10 years now. And some are major launches go off without a hitch. Some are really problematic and have a longer QA period. So I don't really think that we could give you like a fair, truthful answer until at least we get our hands on the alpha and get it loaded into our sandbox environment and get to take a look. But I know as far as like NetSapiens is concerned and how we usually go, usually we try and shoot for like 6 months from when we get their first major release code. And we usually try and wait for at least like the 45.1, if you will. So we're not on the very first release in production, but it really does. And Alberto, I'll let you jump in here, have a lot to do with the PE team and their QA process and all that. So it's one of those things like shooting, hitting a moving target. We're just a little too far out to give you that analysis. But again, as it stands right now, we do expect to have their alpha V45 code sometime, maybe late summer. And again, I'll shut up now and let Alberto.
Yeah, no, definitely. We want to do something similar to what we did when we had V44. And yes, we had issues, but nowhere near to the extent that the rest of the industry had problems and outages after the new release. So we want to make sure that we get that alpha, that we validate it in our sandbox, and that we QA it first to minimize the amount of potential issues that we can have. Obviously, it will be beautiful if we have zero issues, but we want to strive to something similar to what we did in V44, where we essentially we're one of the best partners that had that version being released. So we're not gonna go in the first version of it, and we're gonna do extensive QA and validation and regression tests in our sandbox before we put it out to our um, customer base.
Thank you, Alberto. All right, a couple more questions here. And I see, again, just trying to be mindful of the ones Justin's already answered, like a fact sheet with call cabinet and stuff. And we're working on materials for Vibe. We do already have a website page for call cabinet. I think we're going to have one for sentiment analysis that have a lot of details there too, KB articles. So you guys will have all that. Just you'll see some stuff start to stream in there over the next week or two. But I know even this morning we had a conversation with the marketing group as far as like a brandable sentiment analysis template that will be there right there in Vibe. As far as just for the GPT prompt, so I mean that's kind of part of if you use ChatGPT before, it's kind of how it works. I don't know if there's really like a user guide. One of the things you probably could do is ask it just like what are the things you can do, and I think when you first click in, there is actually like 5 suggested prompts that I had created there just to kind of give you an idea. But it can do just about everything. So I think a user guide would probably be a tough use of our time. Probably easier just to ask it, just what it can do if you're interested in the full list. Because to be honest, I don't even know everything it can do. That's what's pretty cool about it. It just about answers everything. All right. And yeah, and then another question about making a KB white labelable. It's tough to, it's Zendesk, so it's tough. Like we don't have control to that degree to just make it so you can click a button and have your own white label. Like you would have to build your own KB and kind of copy and paste the articles. But we have heard that, especially on the user guides and user guides, and that is one of our initiatives on the marketing front is to create more end user guides that you can then brand. There already are some in there. I know, like for example, like I think Gaylink and stuff like that is already in there. But that has come up, and that is something that's getting our attention. Yeah, and auth.net, that's it's authorized.net. It is the same thing. That it's just they're a credit card merchant that a lot of folks in our space use. They're a common one for if you're coming from I think one of our competitors' billing platforms has it as like their default. So again, it's just pretty typical in the industry, and from what I've seen, it's a little bit cheaper than Stripe. So yeah, you would get that right from auth.net, and the way it works is you build your own, just like Stripe, you create your own account there and you bring the API key to our side. So if you want any context around auth, I think if you go to their website, authorized.net, and just reach out, they should be able to get in touch with you. And then again, from the Vibe integration side, you just have to come armed with the API keys and we can integrate your instance. All right. And again, just trying to be mindful of the questions Justin already answered since we are already over on time. eSIM, I'm not sure the context of that question, but maybe that's something offline. I don't think we have any plans if it's supported from a VoIP perspective, but we're not a mobile carrier at this point, so I don't think it's anything we'd be doing on that front. But again, if I'm misunderstanding that question or the context to it, just please don't hesitate to send us a note. And then call cabinet, yes, just reach out to your client success manager. If you already haven't, this is actually a pretty great topic. We do have our client success team is now in place that they're only focused on your success as partners. They're not chasing new business. We've split those teams. Our channel managers are focused on our new customers, and we just felt like that was unfair for our existing partner base if you had somebody who was kind of their mission was to do both. So now we have a dedicated client success team who's only focused on your guys' success as an existing partner and helping you grow. And they'd be more than happy to talk through with the call cabinet stuff, sentiment analysis, direct access to tier 2, all those different things. So definitely, feel free to reach out. If they haven't already reached out to you, your new client success manager, they will. They're in the process of doing that with all our partners. But if they just haven't gotten to you yet and you want to reach out beforehand, just email sales@viirtue.com, and we can set up that first meeting so you can get to know that representative. So anyway, that being said, it looks like we've rolled down to the end of our questions. Thank you guys so much for having us. Alberto, Justin, thank you guys so much for your contributions. I know you guys are super busy. Alberto, I know you've been running around like a headless chicken with the PE team, just really getting all that into good shape. So we really do appreciate your efforts and the ability to carve out time for us marketing folks in this webinar. But again, anybody has any questions or feedback or concerns, please feel free. We're always in the Slack community. I say I'm definitely always in there. You can shoot me a DM too. Definitely we'll answer that. Again, if you have any feedback, we'd love to hear it. Also, thank you everybody who answered the surveys that we sent out about 2 weeks ago. That was highly helpful information that we're sharing around internally now. So again, thank you guys all for the continued partnership. And I don't know if Alberto or Justin or Marcy, if you guys have any wise words before we sign off.
No, thank you for having me.
Cool.
Same here. Thank you.
Guys, appreciate you. Have a great rest of your week, everybody, and happy 4th of July. Bye, guys.